Columbia University today giving student protesters an ultimatum. Leave the encampment by 2 p.m. or face suspension. Now, those who didn't follow the order are ineligible to complete the semester in good standing. The university saying today it'll move forward with the commencement and that it will not divest from Israel. NTD's Fiona G brings us the update.
I'm right outside the campus of Columbia University. Behind me, the off-campus protests on the street are still going strong. In fact, just a few moments ago, I saw police arrest a woman and put her into a police car. Now, I'm not sure what the woman was arrested for. However, it caused quite a stir and uproar in the protests happening behind me. There are police lining the streets and police cars lining the streets as well. Unfortunately, press is not allowed onto the Columbia grounds. There's very strict security at all entrance and exit points, and only students and faculty with Columbia IDs are able to get on campus right now. But from what we can see, the encampment on campus is also still going strong. I had a chance to speak with a few individuals who are part of the New York City and Columbia communities, with some expressing their sentiments on the ongoing protests, and others mentioning that some students are afraid to speak up for fear of repercussions.
I actually have many Palestinian friends who live in Palestine and Jerusalem and Tel Aviv, and everything on campus now is not helping them at all because they have a big problem with their government, and the actions of their government has led to the current catastrophe. And everyone on campus, whether directly or indirectly, is supporting the terrorists who did on October 7th what they did.
I think there's a mixture of feelings, and I think a lot of students kind of find themselves in the middle of everything. So I think it's challenging because you have students whose parents have given like an arm and a leg for them to be here, who have worked so hard for 4 years. I think that it is important to kind of see that there are different situations, and the pain and suffering of some groups is important and needs to be spoken about, but also at what point do we also respect like the time and effort that students have put into it.
The University of South California has announced that they will be canceling their main graduation event, and nationwide over 900 students have already been arrested in connection with these protests. Now, the situation continues to develop here at Columbia University, but the president did say she would provide an alternative protest venue after graduation and exams have ended. The protesting students continue to ask the university to divest from Israel. Fiona G, NTD News.
Meanwhile, in Austin, Texas, police reportedly ordered the evacuation of an encampment just an hour after it began. According to Dallas News, demonstrations at the University of Texas began around noon today, with students setting up tents and more. State troopers reportedly showed up just an hour later, ordering the students to leave. Now, it's still unclear how many have been detained. The House of Representatives is expected this week to vote on the Anti-Semitism Awareness Act. The bill would redefine what forms of speech are punishable under federal anti-discrimination laws. Our Washington correspondent Luis Martinez has the details.
The Rules Committee of the House of Representatives began the markup of the Anti-Semitism Awareness Act this Monday. The legislation was originally written back in October of 2023 in the wake of the October 7th terrorist attack by Hamas. The legislation has over 40 co-sponsors, among them over a dozen Democrats. The bill requires the Department of Education to use the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance definition of anti-Semitism to enforce federal anti-discrimination laws. The renewed push to pass the bill comes after college campuses nationwide have been affected by pro-Palestinian protests. The Anti-Semitism Awareness Act would make calling for or justifying violence against Jews or denying the self-determination of the Jewish people punishable under federal anti-discrimination laws.
There is executive authority that be appropriate. If this is not contained quickly, and if these threats and intimidation are not stopped, there is an appropriate time for the National Guard. We have to bring order to these campuses. We cannot allow this to happen around the country.
House Republicans have also asked the Biden administration to use executive action to address anti-Semitism nationwide. On the other hand, House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries sent a letter to Speaker Johnson this Monday urging him to consider a different kind of legislation. The Democrat proposed Countering Anti-Semitism Act looks to create a new White House anti-Semitism task force and allocate $400 million for FEMA's nonprofit security grant program to enhance the physical security of Jewish schools and institutions. It is expected that the House of Representatives will vote on the Anti-Semitism Awareness Act this week. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Luis Eduardo Martinez, NTD News.
Student protesters at Columbia University defied yet another deadline to vacate and remove their encampment or face suspension. I spoke with Zachary Marshall, editor-in-chief of Campus Reform and an alumnus of New York University, to discuss what's behind these protests. Zachary Marshall, editor-in-chief of Campus Reform, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now, we're seeing large-scale protests at college campuses and universities across the nation. They're getting violent. We have vandalism at these places, and one of the common slogans that we see is from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Many pro-Israel people take issue with this. Can you describe why?
Yeah, so the slogan means that from the borders of Israel, which is the Jordan River and the Mediterranean Sea, Palestine will be free. What that really means is that Palestine will be there. It goes back to the 1947 decision by the United Nations to give the Palestinians and the Jewish people a state. The Palestinians turned down the opportunity to have a country back in the 40s. So subsequent generations later, they want their state, which they gave up. So they want to eradicate through genocide the Jewish state in the Middle East.
Now, as far as how universities are handling this, many colleges have canceled graduation. University of Southern California, among many of them. Are they taking the right actions here? And in terms of dealing with the protesters, expelling them from the campus, how are they dealing with this, in your opinion?
So we have a lot of universities that took action right away. We saw that at Emory, we saw that at Emerson, and we saw that at Cal Poly Humboldt. But the students are not being deterred by suspensions or expulsions or even being arrested. At Cal Poly Humboldt in California, for example, the campus is now closed for the rest of the academic year because of how badly vandalized it was over this weekend. So there needs to be more force applied to clear out these camps. What's being done right now is just not enough. On the other side, you have Columbia University saying we're not going to allow any police or National Guard on our campus. We're going to have internal discussions. That's resulted in a missed deadline, a missed extended deadline, and now even another extension set by the administrators to get these cleared out. Today, they are threatening with suspensions, and that is the most they have done with this internal solution strategy. But we've seen across the country that the students just do not care. So universities have to ramp up how they are handling the students. And I think that, necessitates calling in the National Guard to clear out the campuses.
With the reactions from the school's president, Columbia University, missing those deadlines to get the protesters out, how should the university respond? Should the president step down? What is your opinion?
I was in the room when she testified to Congress, and it was clear then that she has no interest or will to actually combat these students. She doesn't really want to step up and defend Jewish students. All she wants to do is talk about how great they were at the one vigil she went to. That's what she likes. She likes it when Jews are down. She doesn't want to step up and go against the pro-Hamas students at Columbia. What we're seeing with Columbia is that there were arrests the first weekend. That was a good step. It didn't deter the students, it made them bolder. But Columbia then took the wrong approach. They shied away from having more police, having more armed forces there when you need that, because right now you're seeing this slippage between the protesters in New York City and the people who are actually Columbia students. They have these Hamas protesters who are getting very anti-Semitic and bordering on violent, especially in New York City, have been getting access to Columbia grounds. So I don't see how she's keeping the university safe for Jewish students or for any students. And given the Title VI violations that result from her refusing to keep Jewish students safe, she needs to step down. We've had at least 300 Jewish students already flee in the middle of the night Columbia because they fear for their safety that much. It's just not acceptable.
It seems like these protests are creating a split between the Democratic Party, especially those who are for Palestine and against Hamas, and those who fully support these protests, some of which are these people shouting pro-Hamas slogans. What's behind this?
universities are so far removed from reality that you see bipartisan support for Jewish students for Israel and who are outraged against what's happening in universities. There are a lot of Democrats saying this is unacceptable. And when you have both parties saying that, you know there's something wrong there. We are seeing the squad element of the Democratic Party, the very far left element of the Democratic Party, which is anti-Israel and which is wrong on a lot of issues. They're the vocal minority here, and so universities are placating to them. They're not placating to the mainstream Americans. They are trying to accommodate the people that would see America be overturned and undermined.
Well, thank you very much for your time here.
Thank you for having me on.
Thank you for watching the Capitol Report. If you want to see our full broadcast, check us out at epochtv.com.